Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. It has been far too long to the LJL Summer Split. We are here in week 5 after a massive 3-week break. We are here into 16 games in 2 days. A true trial by fire for our squads here in the LJL to see where things are going to start wrapping up for this playoffs. But before we go any further into that, I've got a few introductions to make. I, of course, am Samuel Initialize Hapgood, and I'm joined, as ever, by Alexander Masked Swan. Swan, we've also got a very special guest for our first 2 games, namely, Everyday over from the VCS English. G'day, mate. Good to have you from the other side of the globe, casting for us and stepping into the ridiculous amount of games we've got to do this weekend.
Happy to be here, mate. Glad to help out.
I'm glad you're here as well, because otherwise I think my voice would be done. There's only so much play-by-play can do before they become a play-by-stop, and I would rather avoid the stopping part for now. Let's instead talk about some LJL and not my fears being allayed about my voice being destroyed. Namely, the fact we have got a weekend of pretty insane matchups. I kind of want to draw our eyes to 1 or 2 that will be coming up a little later in the day. Namely, of course,
but no,
the
initialize. Surely you have a bigger announcement for us.
What announcement do I have for us?
Well, that we're covering all of the 8 games today.
There's a spicy addition. I was just so used to thinking about that we were doing all 8 games, I'd forgotten to announce it. Unfortunately, Masswad is here to recover my indiscretion, so thank you very much, buddy. And yes, we will be casting all 8 games live. It may be 5 a.m. here in the UK, but that matters not to true LJL fans when a Super Week is on the table. Speaking of Super Week, can I draw our eyes to a number of people on this standings board right now, namely the guys right at the top, Lexi. V3 Esports are 8-0 right now, looking to continue a massive undefeated streak, but they have very tough competition in CGA and DFM today. Run me through that and where you're seeing V3 after this big break.
So, we can either see 2 things happen. Are we going to see a reset of DFM, where they normally, after a few weeks, they get their reset going, like we saw in spring playoffs? There was a 3-week break, or it was a month break, and there was a patch change, and DFM looked like a completely different team. Every single player in each of their roles became the best player in that break, and it was absurd to see that. Both V3 and Sengoku were destroyed. If we see a repeat of that, DFM could be back on top. But if V3 keep this dominance going, I don't think either Crest Gaming Act or Detonation Focus Me could stop them.
That's kind of the space we're in, it's fair to say. Guys like Boogie have the highest KDA in Pro Flight leagues in the world right now. It's something like 17.0 KDA. It is absurd that what things this man is doing. You kind of know a little bit about junglers popping off. I take it every day. You come from the VCS, the land of jungle pentakills, so I don't know how much you've been... Yeah, 1 or 2. So, I don't know how much you've been following Boogie and the likes, but have you been keeping an eye on any of these LJL junglers, and how are you feeling how they're comparing up to the VCS competitors out there?
I mean, I think the LJL I think it's very hard to compare the VCS and other regions, because the VCS doesn't really play like other regions, I guess, except maybe some of the LPL.
Something to that.
So, I mean, I've been following Boogie a little bit, and he's very, very good. There's no question about that. But yeah, again, this is an open question.
Sure.
Does any of the junglers in the LJL really have that killer instinct that I might be a bit more used to?
Boogie.
Tell me on it. Boogie does? All right,
yeah,
I'm sold.
So the reason being is, like, this is a guy who plays pretty much everything, but also seems to come up with ridiculous early game leads off it, and is just very smart with his early game pathing as well. Like, his ability to set up vertical jungling, set up dives, and then abuse the enemy jungler is kind of insane. Things like Nidalee have become permaban against him for that reason.
Okay, cool.
So
I'm in.
there you go.
Wait, am I going to get some AP Shyvana? Like, that's not just VCS.
So he's more of an Echo player, actually, is what you'll get. He's an Echo god. Is kind of where we were raising our eyebrows. He had like a 25 KDA on that champion last split.
Ooh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that kind of thing was a bit dirty. But I think it's probably time that we drag our eyes back into our first two matchups, namely because they're the ones that I know you every day and you Maswan will be taking on. We've got Sengoku Gaming versus AXIZ straight out of the gates, and that'll be followed on by Sengoku Gaming versus Rascal Jesters. This is a top versus bottom clash. This is a David versus Goliath. Lexi, talk me through Sengoku Gaming and what we need to see from this squad in these two matchups.
I mean, they can put their feet up on the desks while they're playing these matches. In all seriousness, we said on our most recent podcast, go listen to that podcast, episode 24, already first plug of the day. Boom!
There's the plug.
Let me just say, Sengoku are the best team at punching down because they get control at 5 minutes and they don't let you get it back. They do not give it away. They are so good at controlling so much. Blank reads every jungler, including Boogie, just can't sometimes beat Boogie. That's the point of Boogie. He's so good. He's in your head. You know what he's doing. And then he does it anyway. And you're like, how did he do this? But just Blank Pyrion combo, so good. Apamen might possibly be the best top laner in the world. In the LJL rather.
Well, the league. I was like, wow, that's bold. That's some hype there.
Reframe that. In the region.
Right.
In the region.
I'll clip that one. That's going on there. That's going on the socials.
Go on, that's fine. And then Utonimachi and Enti are just a reliable bot lane. They were far above the competition, a lot of the competition in spring. This time they're in summer. They've taken a bit of a relaxed list. They've played that Sengoku have played more around top side and mid lane instead of actually playing around the bot side. But we already saw in week 1 that they can still do that, and I'm sure that Yutori Moashi and Enti are still have that killer instinct, can beat everyone. And I just feel bad for Corporal and Eunyan really in this first game because it's gonna not be fun, right?
Yeah, it's a rough space for AXIZ, and every day I'll throw this one to you. But again, obviously, feel free to ask the questions you need to ask. AXIZ, they're 0-8 right now. They are missing a player. They've had to role swap another because of visa issues out in Japan. What are their chances coming in against Sengoku Gaming, who were second place in spring, are in second place in summer, looking to challenge for the top? What hopes do they have? And can you see anything at all where they might be able to contest?
You did describe this as a David versus Goliath matchup, and I don't know if you actually know the historical context of David versus Goliath.
Do tell me.
What most people don't understand is that David is actually favoured in that fight. If you have a little bit of, if you take the story away, a slinger should actually always win that fight. So the real question here is, well, can Goliath get lucky? Because that is always the thing. Because back in ancient warfare, those big brutes that would come at you, Goliath probably had gigantism, so he was probably almost blind, couldn't really move properly, and David could just run away with a sling. This is true, by the way.
I'm very well aware.
That's what we need to see today. We need to see Goliath get lucky and just get a good whack with the club. Because one whack, that's all you need. If they can land that one whack, Sengoku might fall over.
So the thing is, we've got. I think that is the most beautiful. Well, that's the kind of stretch we need though for AXIZ right now, and that kind of analogy is exactly what we need to see because AXIZ are in a difficult space, and something they might have going for them, Lexi, is their creative drafting. This is a squad that's been known to pull some unusual combos out that other teams just aren't, and kind of run with them. I'm thinking back to Spring Split with the likes of Tristana mid with the Karthus jungle for just the big long-range execute with just the massive burst damage. I'm thinking Jinx Lysandra for the lockdown into AoE blow-up stuff. Do you think they can pull something up that might give them an edge here? And is there anything you've got your eyes on that we might need to keep our eye out for?
Well, I would like to say that something like the Senna Wukong is definitely a lane we could see. This is where Corporal would actually play the Senna, and Eunyan would play that Wukong. He is a top laner.
Make a lot of sense.
It would make sense. You could do that with Senna Set as well. These are lanes where I feel like you need to kind of lean on the strengths of the person that has role swapped down. The other way you could start doing this is maybe have him play like a very different champion. Something like that Karthus, which you can definitely play down this bot lane at the moment. Karthus has the highest DPM out of every champion in the game. So if you just put him on an unorthodox champion that's not really meant to be played in bot, he'll be like, well, wait a second, this is like my top laners. I play Ornn and do random things with my abilities and sometimes win lane, sometimes lose lane. Who do we know? Play something like that. I'd love to see that Syndra, that Cassiopeia. There's a bunch of these champions he could play. They just haven't seen it. And, I mean, the writing's almost on the wall for them. I'd be up to see any kind of thing like that now.
All right, so I'll throw this one a little bit more to the floor. I am going to sort of bring us to our featured matchup for this particular setup, and I think in my eyes, this is going to be our mid lane. They're both the kind of star players in a lot of ways of both these squads. Pyrion has been performing exceptionally well for Sengoku Gaming. Ex-SKT, now T1 fame, of course. On the other side for AXIZ, it has been Garyadu where when they've been finding some advantages, it's been through him. How are we feeling about these two players? Feel free to pick a player of your choice.
I mean, personally, Pyrion is just one of the top 3 mids in the LJL at the moment. Garyadu is maybe 5th or 6th in the standings. And that's no bash to Garyadu. He's a very, very competent player. The problem is he's got so much to kind of pull out, and he doesn't have that mid-jungle duo that we've seen. He doesn't have Blank. Also, SKT, now known as T1. You don't have that kind of synergy that they've built up through playing these two synergies. Hoglet might be maybe the worst jungler at the moment, and it's like...
He's been having a rough time, yes.
Right, so like, you have to compare the two, and you're just like, well, Garyadu is good, but he's got to pull along a Hoglet, whereas Pyrion doesn't pull along a Blank. Blank is beside him, and I think that's going to be a big problem for AXIZ and Garyadu and versus Pyrion in this matchup. I think it's favoured Pyrion. He has the larger champion pool a lot of the time. He has the longer experience, and at the moment, he's higher mechanically played as well.
Okay, well, thank you for that roundup there. Go on, Everyday. Tell me a little bit more.
I was just going to say, like, obviously, you know a lot more about these players, but from what you're saying, I do think if you're ever going to be able to get away with having the worst jungler and potentially being the worst mid mechanically, it is actually at the moment in the meta. You can just stick your jungler on Trundle. It's not hard. Trundle's an easy champion. You can't screw it up.
Wait a second. I've just seen a change in the lineup for AXIZ. They're playing day 1 at the moment.
Well, that is a new player in after the break. That is a big deal. So obviously, for some context again, guys, we'll bring this back around. There have been some serious visa issues with a number of Korean players across a number of teams in the LJL. Struggling to get into Japan with the COVID crisis and with residency issues in Japan being a fairly tricky place to navigate. Take it from someone who had to deal with the number of loopholes to get a residency card when he was living out there. This has meant that, of course, Hyde has not been available to the AXIZ squad, and they've been running with a substitute top, sort of rotating Eunyan, their top laner, down to be their bot laner. They've moved Eunyan back to the top lane. They've brought in a new laner in day 1.
I mean...
No, changed things out.
Well, he's not fully new. He has been part of the team for years. He's been on and off. He was a substitute back in January 2019. He then actually did play for them for that summer split in June 2019 through to next part. And then he became a streamer. So that's why I was so confused when I suddenly saw his name. I was like, wait, this guy's a streamer over in Japan. He's a signed streamer to AXIZ. This is like kind of having Broken Blade suddenly come in. I'm like, what? I'm so confused.
Okay. Well,
I mean, it's better than a role swap top, right?
It must be.
Yeah, I gotta hope, and that might change things around a little bit here. Okay, before we go too much further into that bot lane, because I think it is worth touching on that at some point. need predictions from both of you gentlemen. Who are we seeing? I think it's fairly obvious, but every day I'll go to you first.
Look, I'm not gonna rock the card here. I think it's Sengoku. They did sound a lot better. They
fair enough.
From the footage I've watched, it's obviously the better team.
I think that's fair. Maswan.
I mean, I appreciate every day here because he's also playing the long game. He's like, if any of my compatriots, my other VCS commentators come over here, I want to already have the perfect record. They have to match me, or they're just not anywhere near as good as me. So I appreciate that Sengoku winning.
I mean, all right. You've seen the VCS predictions. It's not going so well.
Well, hopefully you can get a new Leaf and a new perfect slate every day, but I am going to leave the two of you here because we have moved into pick and ban. So, gents, best of luck, and I'll see you on the other side of the cast.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Initialize. And every day, it's lovely to be here with you.
It is. I'm very happy to be here. I'm always happy to have a look at a new region. It's always good to broaden your horizons.
Absolutely.
So what kind of picks are we looking out for?
So let's just run down the teams as we've got them. So for Sengoku, we've got top lane, we've got Apperman, Blank in the jungle, Pyrian as their mid laner, Yutori Moashi as their AD carry, and NT as their support. And would you do me the honours of doing AXIZ?
Of course. Over for AXIZ, we do have... Oh, God, I'm going to butcher some of these names. We've got Unyan up in the top lane, Hoglet in the jungle, Gariaru in the mid, Day One and Corporal bringing in the bot lane.
Perfect. Actually really solid. Really like it. And we've got some bans coming in. Karma, Graves, Nidalee. Pretty standard stuff so far.
Yep, that's tier list.
Yep, that's not even trying to ban anyone out explicitly. That's pure tier list. Sengoku, the Nidalee slightly targeted Hoglet, but we've seen Nidalee coming up multiple times, so it's not super surprising to see that, really.
Yep. So the Twisted Fate ban strikes me as a little bit of a target ban. He is very strong, of course. Is that something Sengoku like?
So we haven't actually played any games for the last 3 weeks over in the LJL, so we haven't seen the rise of Twisted Fate in patch 10.14, but Pyrian was a historic TF player, and Control Mage, this is why the Orianna ban also coming through. Pretty standard, in all fairness, and I'm not surprised also to see this Volibear's 3-lane switch around you can do, basically. Makes total sense for Sengoku.
It does. I'm crossing my fingers that it doesn't go to a lane. I still think Jungle Volibear is the best place to put him, but it's answered by Ashe Zoe. That's a very strong first rotation.
It's a really strong rotation. The problem is, Day One is coming in to try and play their first game of professional play in basically over a year. And his best champions historically were that Kai'Sa and this Ezreal. Hasn't picked it, gone for Ashe, who arguably has one of the highest presences across the whole world. I mean, I don't mind the takeaway, but oh god, that's not good to see.
He also just got counterpicked.
Yeah, that's awkward.
There is the Jhin.
Oh god, that's scary. Oh my god, I love this. Oh.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, so Pyrian loves these control mages we said earlier with that Orianna and TF. What's Victor? Just the king, maybe. The Emperor, if there wasn't an Emperor already in League. Of that control mid lane.
Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much the controlliest of control mage. The archetypical control mage makes it so hard for Ashe to do anything in the fights without just getting zoned forever. Picking set when you already see Jhin Volibear is questionable.
So I have to imagine this isn't actually going top or jungle. This is going to be support. So Corporal is...
but...
So we on cast have a little bit of a soft spot for Corporal. He's a player, came out of nowhere. He's an Aussie. So you might...
Yeah, I know. I've heard. I'm backing him.
Yeah, so he's an Aussie. And he's also been a big playmaker for AXIZ. And he's also on our Discord, so shout out to him. He's really good at these control junglers, or well, control supports rather, and really initiating a lot of fights. His Thresh is really solid, and we've been asking to see more like team fighting supports from him. We've seen it from a few other supports in the region, and I'm pretty sure his set's going to be the support. That's why they're banning the Zyra.
Yeah. I will say, I do like Ashe set as a lane. I think having the ability to have the Ashe as your initial engagement, because she doesn't have to commit. You can throw the arrow and then think about it. You don't have to go in, but once Set commits, he doesn't really get much thinking time. So he's better as a secondary engage, in my opinion. So I'm happy to see this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the owner ban just kind of is just a strong power pick to say deny that, especially with Jhin, right? It basically goes into what you just said. Oh, well, if it's a bard, then that's
hello.
Flex.
It's just the VCS. All right, we're in the VCS. No worries. Let's go. We've got some Brad.
All right, so bard's in here. That means that set is probably flex jungle top. I mean, the Volibear has been still flex top and jungle. They're deciding what they want to go with. I mean, they can basically do whatever they want, really, here. I still love Sengoku's lineup so far.
Sengoku is seemingly getting everything they want. They get a Thresh to go along with their Jhin. Thresh is the godsend of immobile ADC. And the cannon! And your reaction belies a story.
So, Appaman has been expanding his champion pool a lot this split, and this is something that it kind of fills into the narrative that they really want to make Appaman into a carry top laner. They don't want him on just, oh my god, we got a Sylas. Well,
I like this. This is a really good Sylas pick.
Top lane, a return to the top lane for Eunyan this game, after the break. This is a huge statement versus Appaman's Kennen, who out this whole split has basically, they've been transforming and molding into this carry top laner. Well, you've got a challenge today. Eunyan saying, hey, I'm back in my top lane, I'm back in my comfort spot, no more of these bot lane BS, I can now actually focus on playing real island strategies.
Yep. But, I mean, I think Sylas v Kennen's a really interesting matchup. That Pikachu v Ditto way that works. They both... The Sylas loves to steal Kennen ult. Like, it's so obvious. I really like this pick. I think Sylas has a lot of good ults to steal. I think he fits the team comp. I think Sengoku's draft is pretty ridiculous. Yeah. But I actually think AXIZ has a... If you again, I'm coming in. I haven't seen too much footage of these players. I don't know how big the player diff is. I don't hate their comp. I actually kind of think they do more damage.
Yeah, they've got a lot of options here. I mean, bot lane offers a lot of initiation with that Ashe Bard. Obviously, they've got Gadiadu on this Zoe in the mid lane. Hoglet's great at just kind of grouping a bunch of people up with that Facebreaker. And I do agree with you. Sylas, I think, is going to be able to steal a lot of great ults. The box is a great ultimate to steal. Basically, all of the ults on the side of Sengoku are good for Sylas to take to one level or another. Volibear's one being sometimes the most impactful, but if you miss it, the least impactful. But in all fairness, yeah, AXIZ have a great teamfight potential. The problem is, they're against Pyrion on his Victor. He's 2-0. He ran a Spellbook Victor, and he basically ran over DFM. And DFM are the team that we're trying to poise as one of the teams that could deny them their win. Yeah. Maybe not. I mean,
these stats speak for themselves, right?
Yeah.
This is... You can analyze compositions all you want, but eventually you have to bite the bullet and face the fact that players matter as well.
And that experience difference at 15 is just, you don't even care about the rest of it at that point. You're just disgusting. You just go, well, they're always ahead in gold. They're third in that, but they're almost always ahead on everybody in experience, and they're also a gold difference at 15. They find the way to come first in 5 minutes. That's absurd.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is... absurd is the only word for it. That is some of the most dominant stats I've ever seen, and, I've seen gum.
Yes.
So yeah, again, I think AXIZ did really well for themselves in the draft. I understand that Jin is coming in as the Ashe counter pick, can use the range. I still have my doubts when it comes to his team fighting. He just doesn't do enough DPS. But with that Victor that you're hyping up so much, I think Sengoku kind of can just walk over them. I don't know if they have enough tools to stop them.
I mean, that's part of it. They need to really pull it all together. AXIZ have a comp. They have great initiation. They've got a pretty good combo-wombo, really, in their lineup. With that Ashe ultimate set, Silas, just Zoe, everything. They can pick one or two people off. Bard's great at picking one off. Zoe's great with the Trouble Bubble, as well as the Ashe ultimate. They're really good at just kind of getting one person. The thing is, on Sengoku, they're really good at basically denying all of that. Kennen's very mobile. Volibear isn't interested in you. You've also got Thresh, who's going to just lantern back any of them, whenever you go anywhere near them. So it's going to be hard to lock them up. I think, though, like you said, if they get that, it could be all over.
Yeah, it's true. It's almost like that Leota ban, I think it could have been a Thresh ban. It's Jin. He really needs help repositioning. It's kind of the same as Aphelios. Why Aphelios Thresh was just a ridiculous lane. It still is.
It is.
You could have potentially said, okay, you can have Leona because Leona Jin, Leona doesn't help Jin in team fights, even if it is a fairly strong lane. Yeah. Give me some hope for AXIZ here. So, they've got an Aussie on the roster.
So
I want to have
always draft a pretty reasonable comp almost every game that they play. So them having a pretty decent lineup and a comp isn't ridiculously unexpected from them. What their problem is kind of bringing it all together. The hope could be Corporal can land some pretty good Bard ultimates and secure that up. The hope is Day 1 and Eunyan are now on their respective roles. We have Eunyan actually now in that top lane, and Day 1 coming back. Yes, he didn't have a great win rate when he did play, but what's wrong now? You've got to try everything, and I really appreciate bringing as many people in and trying to try a bunch of stuff out. Gadialu is potentially sometimes just one of the best mid laners in the region, and there's a chance. They could just pick apart. They've got an Ashe, highest presence AD carry out of any region in the world at the moment. You could say they got power picks, at least.
Yeah, they certainly have power picks. This is a functioning composition, as unfortunately my feed is a little bit laggy, so just hoping that clears up. But we are watching these two teams get going. It is going to be a topside start for both junglers. Do we see action in the bot lane? Bard's pretty good at setting things up.
It is against a Thresh, so it's going to be really hard for anything to come fully through it. It's going to... Oh, wow, though. You just have to look at that Twitter poll. You just got to look at that Twitter poll. The fan vote, it's in. AXIZ used to get a way lower one until they made the playoffs in Spring Split. So they are a team who had one of the lowest win rates over the last... in 2019. Came into Spring 2020, had an absurd win rate, and it was a brilliant... AI bots actually predicting AXIZ win. There you go, every day.
Thank you.
AI
Someone's got some hope. There we go. Blitzcrank's got me. As there is a bit of a trade there in the mid lane. Gary Aru coming out a little bit behind, but he is Zoe. He'll be just fine. Just get those auto attacks down. But down in the bot side, there is a cosmic binding. Doesn't go anywhere. Where do we think the early action will be? Wow, we might see a self-fulfilling answer there as Blank is chasing onto Hoglet. Has to hit the legs. It's two very fast boys. Bear chasing Bear. As they're trying to get onto them there. There's a bit of tension, but it is diffused.
Oh my god, Gadiadu is just at a quarter that's a quarter health. What happened in the mid lane?
So this is something we've actually seen. Ooh, needs to be careful, but this is something we see with Bards in the VCS. What he's done, and you can see it there, he's just played stupidly aggressive to make sure he has priority and good wave, and then goes back to the shrines. Bard would have taken W level 1, just dropped him in his lane, sacrificed his own lanes level 1 to make sure Garyaru has a bit of a better time. Unfortunately, Pyrian doesn't seem to miss the death race.
No, Pyrian isn't going to miss the death race. He's also not going to be able to... Apperman, hello, buddy? That's pretty far up.
He has to run. There's a face breaker. Will come in, but I don't think the Silas can get close enough, so it is just going to be a little bit of damage. Yeah.
I don't think he was looking at his minimap. I just have to assume he wasn't looking at the minimap there and just went back a bit too late, because he was pretty far up in the lane. He is waiting for this freeze, though.
Very, very true. And tell me, where do we think the first big bit of action will be? Who wants to fight for these early objectives?
I mean, Sengoku have absurd objective control throughout the map. Expect them to be getting the Drake when it pops up. Expect them to get Rift Herald when it pops up. The Infernal Drake is going to be up in 30 seconds, and you can already see Blank is on the opposite side, probably going to be recalling and maybe rotating around. If he's not doing that, they're basically assuming some other strategy. Sengoku are typically very good at having that objective control, and their first tower rate isn't horrendous either.
Yeah. Of course, I can see a world where the early skirmishes do go fairly well for AXIZ. I think they've got fairly decent early game fight potential.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before sort of the zoning combo of Sengoku comes online, because it ends up being very difficult for AXIZ to play.
Yeah, and they also have the advantage of that Ashe ultimate. Once they hit 6, that Ashe ultimate can't be understated how big of an impact it's going to make in that 3v3 with the jungler coming down. It's so much power and pressure that comes through that stun and damage that just comes... It's just so much. It's like almost like 150 health just gone, plus you're stunned for like almost 1.5 seconds. You could just be dead with a Bard ultimate on top of you as well.
Yeah, it's very true. This mid lane is absolutely brutal, but we'll have to see what Hoglet can get done. Burns the flash for nothing on his side, so that's a good situation.
Also,
but I was about to bring it up
as well at some point soon.
Yeah,
or recently.
Yeah, that's very true. Must have been a bubble landing, but he just had to cleanse away. I was going to bring it up, of course, is you mentioned he has been running people over on the spellbook, Victor. He has actually gone airy this game, which is probably part of why Garyaru has not been looking very healthy. But this is an Infernal Drake being started up.
That would make sense. I believe when he was against DFM, he had a far less aggressive lane, which is kind of typical for Syros. Syros is very much, and historically, wants to play more control, wants to basically kind of grind his opponent out and win through just sheer skill and playability through the control mage matchup, where you don't always get that option. As first Drake was taken for Sengoku with very little contestation.
Oh, but Hoglet looks like he wants to get something on the backside of it, throws himself in. There's a lantern coming out, not interrupted by the facebreaker.
And there we go. Clean. They just wanted to try and get Krabby. One allowed it. AXIZ said no. 4 members came along to say no, so they were like, all right, we'll back off. We've got a Thresh Lantern. And that, what did I say? Thresh Lantern's great at just getting one of them out when they find themselves in an awkward spot. Already done it once.
Yep, but Hoglet, he's going to have another go. Only has that level 5. Can he get the big facebreaker? No, he only pulls the Thresh. The hook comes out, it catches on. Can they turn it? There's the Haymaker shield. Everyone backs off.
And again, that Lantern came in, gets him out just a little bit further, as well as also just Hoglet wasn't in a great spot. Day 1 and Corporal weren't close enough, and also they're not at 6 yet, so they don't really have that follow-up when they are further down in the lane. As poking continues to resume in the mid lane and most likely the top lane, as that just always happens, right?
Yeah, I mean, the top lane at the moment is just a bit of a lead to the cannon. It's range versus melee. That makes a lot of sense. But the Silas is fine. Again, he just wants to get through this lane and try and add some stolen ultimates to the team fights.
Yeah, as we can see, Merc Tread's coming out for the Bard here, for the side of Anti on this Thresh. Speedy Boots, pretty standard stuff. It is interesting to see, though, Corporal decide to go for those Merc Treads, as that's not typical on Bard. You normally see them going Moby Boots.
Yeah, I mean, Bard is one of those champions that you say, well, they typically do something. Do Bards typically do anything? They kind of go to the beat of their own drum. For sure it is. So Rift Herald now is going to be taken. Looks like no contest out of Sengoku. So AXIZ, they were proactive on the macro move and they come out really far ahead.
Wow. I mean, AXIZ have to retain some of their statistics going out, so, and they do have, they're a weird team sometimes. Sometimes they will control a bunch of objectives, sometimes they'll 50-50, sometimes they'll get none. And it's sometimes weird which sign you're going to get. They always lose, sadly, at the moment, as you can see through their win rate. But they normally have okay. The early game is okay normally for them. It's just, it kind of falls apart through one team fight. Where can you go through that? As thankfully, though, it's net neutral. Yeah, they're 1k down, but that you can recover from that, especially with a Rift Herald.
Yeah, they've got the Rift Herald in the back pocket. It wasn't traded for any tower plates in the bot lane. The Shelly bargain did not come into effect. But hello, up in the top lane, there was 2 flashes and the stolen slicing Maelstrom. But Upperman does get away.
Although Hoglet's here looking for it, and they need to clear this.
Ooh, there's the slicing Maelstrom. He's trying to clear out the wave. This is dangerous. He can stop the show, but it doesn't matter because that will be first blood drawn by the Silas.
And this is impressive. If you think about it, that was partly set up through Unyan earlier, and then it rotated around for Hoglet to do the follow-up. And I'm guessing Sengoku weren't expecting that follow-up as... Oh, God, Ash Arrow.
Ooh, Ash Arrow comes out, forces the insta-cleanse, but there's a stun. But everyone gets away.
Well, Day 1's ult is going to be up before the cleanse of Yutori Mashi, so it's so important. Hoglet,
hello. Hang on a minute. In the mid lane, there's the showstopper. He comes in with the big power bomb. This Chaos Storm is used as well, but they're going to try and get onto him, and kaboom! A Haymaker comes in!
That is phenomenal. AXIZ are playing like we saw them at the end of spring, where they could actually contest most teams. Sure, they also could lose occasionally to other teams, but Hoglet, this is your best game so far in the summer. And, well, if it's taken you this long, if you can have AXIZ go 6-0, well, they'll be in the playoffs for sure.
This is textbook. There's nothing else to say. This is textbook.
Yeah, it was beautifully saw. They just realized they didn't have any wards, came through very cleanly, didn't stop, and Hoglet aggressively using that Hexa Flash to ult in. Works beautifully. Pyrian was no idea, and also, importantly, that cleanse from earlier that we highlighted was very important for them there.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that was just a super well executed gank there. That is something that Set can do. And if Hoglet has been having a bad split, if he, you were saying he's probably the worst jungler, banging him on Set, it's not a bad idea. You just build full tank, you just point and click people into your team and murder them. Yeah, he's doing it, right? He's just had 2 very good ganks, and AXIZ is looking pretty good in this one.
Well, we're at that point in the game now where we start to see AXIZ fall apart as Upperman.
Have a bit of a clash as Upperman is going to pop that slicing Maelstrom to try and get away, but the Facebreaker is here. Hoglet gets the big shield. Can they keep the chase down? He's got the lightning rush, though.
He's has and was able to just get away. Oh my god, Gadiadu!
Zoe!
Yeah, Zoe likes to do that thing. An important thing of note, Day 1 is now over 30 CS and 2 turret plates down.
Yeah. That's a disaster.
And Yutori Moashi was maybe the best bot lane carry in spring. And while his summer's been quiet, it's partly just due to how Sengoku have been playing. Though first tower, pretty good.
Yep. Yeah, that'll be first brick up in the top side there for AXIZ. They're extending their gold lead. They're now 1.5k ahead. Considering that bot lane deficit, that's very impressive.
Oh, hugely. And this is a statement more for Unyan. So finally returns to his top lane and immediately goes against Upperman and showing he's still got it.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely, this Silas is looking like it's 1917 out here as he's storming the Winter Palace. And look down in the bot lane, there's a bit of a catch, but that Lantern is a strong spell. I just wanted to comment as well. He's got fleet footwork on the Silas. It's a little bit late. I've only just noticed. No Conqueror. It's interesting.
No, I think that's partly due to the fact, and partly the respect of he'll be able to get a short combo on, and then he's going to need that speed to probably just run away. It's part of the poke, I'm assuming, that Yutori is expecting. But partly because he's not expecting to have NT right next to him at all times. He's going to need to rely on that Lantern. So I think that's part of it. He's not going to be babied as often as NT does like to roam. A lot. relatively speaking. So it kind of does.
I meant Unyan. I was talking about Unyan on the Silas, not the Jin.
Oh, apologies.
Yeah.
Oh,
no, fleet work on Jin is bog standard.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure, but I will try and back up my point as best as possible. And then I'm like, Silas, I mean, I get to keep up with Kennen.
I mean, looking at it, it's calm down, you. Looking at it, it's probably just a respect for the. I mean, funnily enough, I think your point applies in many ways. It is the short trades and then needing some speed to get out. Just doesn't. Not expecting much help from the Thresh, I can imagine, over on the side of Unya. But so something we have to comment on here is we're praising AXIZ's early game, and it has got them off to a bit of a gold lead.
Yep.
But 2 dragons already taken. They've spotted Hoglet. NT, he could be in trouble. There's the suplex, but he's got a blast cone. But it's interrupted by the facebreaker, and Gary Arrow gets a free kill.
So my only concern is they're fighting. They use 2 ultimates for that kill. Oh,
hello. This is going to be a bit of a statement. Pyrion drops down that grab zone. And I think that might be enough to get him out.
So that's good. That's really good. They got a kill on NT, caught him out. NT only burnt his flash. Whereas AXIZ burnt 2 ultimates on the side of that. And if a team fight happens, what else are they getting for all of this time that they're spending? Well, maybe this.
Well, they might be getting a Pyrion if he can get forward onto him. He's charging in. Set is a speedy boy, but not quite speedy enough.
And I do wonder, they're not getting him any objectives. They did also lose the Herald for that, so because they knew that all the members of Sengoku were down in that, of AXIZ in that bot lane. Blank didn't do much of an early game, which is kind of surprising on this Volibear. Volibear has good ganks in this early game, just didn't find any opportunities, ended up farming, and what has this farm lead accomplished over Hoglet? Basically 5 CS.
Yeah, it's nothing. That is the Chaos Storm being dropped to clear the wave, and if I may...
Not nothing. He did get 2 dragons.
True, that's the big thing. But we have a bit of a scale for our Volibears over in the VCS. I hate to hijack it.
Oh, no.
I wonder if you want to start ranking your Volibears the same way.
Okay.
Well, a good Volibear would be a black bear.
Okay.
A great Volibear would be a grizzly bear. But most Volibears are koala bears. We'll have to see where Blank comes in. Because at the moment, he's gotten those dragons, but I don't think AXIZ is too scared of him. He's looking a bit cuddly at the moment.
Oh, Corporal, though.
Ooh, Tempted Fate. Just misses. Still fishing for the play.
Well, this dragon is going to be up in 10 seconds, so they are rotating around. AXIZ have definitely secured all of the vision around here, doing deep pink wards as well, and they're just waiting for Hoglet to be able to pull it back for the rest of the team. I don't know why they're not already on it. They should be on it at this exact point in time. Well, maybe that's what Pyrion thinks.
I think they want to get onto Pyrion. There's a facebreaker straight into the slam. There's a haymaker, and Hoglet puts a hole in that robot's chest.
No.
They're going to have to get over the dragon.
I wasn't sure if they were... Yeah, it looked like they were going to go for this dragon, then they weren't going to go for it. Were they going to fight for it? Then they didn't want to dive against day 1 on this Ashe solos. Apperman has got his teleport up. Or will be up in a moment.
He does, but there's the curtain call coming out. The dragon's secured. They really want to get Unyan back up towards this top lane, though, but it's not going to be in time to save the tower.
Well, and now tower advantage has slowly swung in Sengoku's favor, but it is still about a 1k gold deficit at 15 minutes. So, this is actually pretty good for AXIZ. This is where they start falling behind. They're actually not behind. They're still ahead somewhat by this point. Yeah,
and they just stopped the dragon snowball, right?
Yeah.
This is, honestly, pretty good for AXIZ. They kind of deprioritized the early dragons, but then they were the proactive ones. As you said, they got all the vision in the bot lane, the bot quadrant, ready for that dragon. They played it a little bit weird, and I think caught Pyrion super off guard, because why were they there? But it worked. They take the dragon. That's a win condition heavily delayed for Sengoku. It's looking good, but Blank wants to have a chat as he goes in. The W from Jin comes, but the magical journey will save them. Could we have a round 2 as Silas throws out the chains, doing a lot of damage onto NT, but everyone disengages.
Yeah, and we've now got this reset point where Epperman has now rotated round to the spot lane. He already took the top lane turret now, so he's just going to become an AFK farming machine. And has had some of these items come in. Has had the belt come in, as well as that Morello's. Yes, I know he's a sinner, but it makes sense against Silas, let's be real.
It makes sense against this whole team, really.
Yeah, really.
There's a lot of healing.
Yeah,
Bard will be a Bork
healing.
Ash.
Yeah.
Bard healing, set regen, and Silas. Yeah, the W is not a fair spell.
Well, and I mean, if
so
Zoe happens to get healed through her spellbook, just there's multiple ones, right?
Yeah. I think even the Leandre salesman could deal with this Morello's buy. This is a real one. Even just Silas. Like, cutting Silas's healing is a very, very big deal.
Oh, it really is. I mean, I wouldn't be too surprised if we see Pyrion buy Morello's, really.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Probably not super early, of course, because Victor's itemization is very strange. Due to that Hex Core. Day One needs to try and find a way out here. The curtain call came for him. He turns it around with an arrow. The teleport is to the inner tower, but here comes a Tempered Fate. Will land onto Enti. The bubble is timed perfectly, but there's an instant Mikhail's. There is Pyrion launching a Death Ray, but it doesn't quite live up to its name. But over on the side, there was a GLP, but no engage.
And it was kind of as best as AXIZ could really hope for. It's weird to see a team that's got 4-0, but their gold lead is so small at this point in time, and it's not stacked hugely in the favor of one team member except for Hoglet. And Hoglet historically hasn't been that playmaker. If he can show up, there's a big chance, but he's now got that shutdown gold, and if AXIZ can sustain this, there's a big hope for them.
I mean, you say it's not that big. It's only 2k at 20 minutes, but considering the projected way this match was going to go, I think AXIZ is kind of playing out of their minds. They've been super clean.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. They've definitely played a lot of these team fights. They've caught out Pyrion unexpectedly twice, and that 70% off of the AI bot just emphasizes your point.
Yeah, like this is looking really good for them at the moment. They have to. This is the part of the game where execution begins to matter, because it's not skirmishes anymore. It's going to be 5v5s. They have to be calling their targets, getting onto the right people, and navigating the zone of Kennen, Jin, and Victor. That's not hard for that's not easy for the best of teams.
No, it's not. As well as also you've got this Thresh in the background who can just hook you, take control of one of your members, and just completely
but hello, Upperman's getting visit again. The tower bomb comes in. Pikachu has his lightning stolen. He goes down in the bot lane. Will they try and get a turnaround in the mid? There's an Ash Arrow onto the damage and to the Tempered Fate. This should be an easy disengage. It's a good Cosmic Binding as well. And AXIZ come out of top on another play.
Sengoku just can't find a break at all throughout this game. AXIZ just have their number, and yes, it's unfortunate that Gadiadu on this Morello's buy only 4 stacks at the moment. Well, no, not Morello's. God, I had a whole...
Medjay.
I had a whole thing there, and I just completely destroyed myself by getting the name wrong, and they're going to try and grab them. I don't think they're going to be able to catch them, though.
Yeah, they did get Unyan's flash, and with the curtain call, he has to have some fancy feet here. How good's his ballet? Ooh, it's almost good enough, but he was caught by the Death Ray and the final shot, and man, that was a proper show.
And it's the first one on the board for Sengoku. However, it's not that shutdown onto Hoglet, who now has a 300 gold shutdown and is looking like his best game in a real long time, and what a comeback performance for this man.
Yeah, this is like you've just said they did come back out from a 3-week break. They look revitalized. This is a team that looks very, very serious. Of course, that unfortunate bot lane play does mean that Sengoku move up to Soul Point, but it's only a Cloud Soul, not the worst thing in the world to give away.
No, and where I want to know where this AXIZ was. Why didn't they just bring in day 1 earlier? Not day 9. That's a YouTuber for StarCraft stuff. Why didn't day 1 come in earlier? And why wasn't Eunyan just in his top lane? This game has been completely different from so many of their other games, especially on their first outing where it was just a Sengoku game.
Yeah, this is much, much better than we expected, right? They've still got a long way to go. Sengoku's comp, as we keep alluding to, is still very, very strong as the game progresses. Blank charging forward onto Hoglet, but the Blast Cone is there. They get knocked over into the red. The Cosmic Binding will not land, but the Magical Journey is good as Hoglet slips through it. Once again, they get away. This Bard pulling his weight.
That's Corporal, and that's the Aussie pride going. Maybe some biasy through our play-by-play commentator, or maybe it's just true.
Oh, Blank charging it again. He's going to go into that big mode. Gets immediately showstoppered, blown up there as Hoglet now has to get on the run. Is there going to be any more follow-up? I don't think so.
But Eunyan this whole time has been able to just AFK push. He didn't have his teleport, so he couldn't join his team, so he had to try and find an objective. Yes, they lose that mid lane, but they've already had their mid lane turret gone 4-3 now in favor of Sengoku, and that's a huge decisive play. I can't wait for this replay. Okay, so what are we seeing here? Well, Galliardo does a great bubble there. Just completely eliminates Apperman out of this, and that Bard ultimate actually zoned a lot there. Hoglet, huge ult showstopper there, and was able to just fancy feet his way through. It ain't Falco, that's Set, bro.
That's damn right. That is definitely not Falco, as that big Haymaker shield prevented Blank from doing anything. And as the game continues, I'm seeing two Australians on the Rift at the moment. Yeah, you got Corporal, but I'm telling you, mate, there's a koala over on Sengoku. It's Bear. He's not doing a lot, is he? Oh, bring on an Aussie as your play-by-play, and suddenly you got more Aussies on the Rift.
I mean, it's... I'm okay with this. I was like, where do I sit with this? Oh, I'm okay with this. This is fine for me. I mean, reset point has happened. Items have just been coming in. Huge buys actually now for Yutori Mashi, hitting that third BF sword, looking to buy that Infinity Edge. Once he completes that, he's actually going to be more online in a lot more of these team fights, as Jin is definitely, in my eyes, more of a 3-item kind of champion.
I mean, the thing about this Jin is that he's more there as utility.
Sure.
He, obviously, if he can smack that fourth shot in, it does a lot of damage, but if he only hits a tank, which is kind of likely in coordinated play, it's not that important. He's more there for the curtain call, for those long-range snares. The person to watch is still Pyrion. This Victor is a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, I would agree. Ooh.
Could be in trouble here. Blank catches him out. He uses the shield, but he will be able to run away from the gravity field.
Lot of interesting spots here. AXIZ just keep finding any of the members of Sengoku caught out. We've seen Apperman be caught out twice, Pyrion's been caught out twice, and now we're also seeing Blank and Enti always being caught out. Where has this AXIZ been? I'm really impressed. It's really nice to, one, see Hoglet have a phenomenal gain, and two, for the whole team of AXIZ to just kind of be fully on point. Way to go, AXIZ! And, in all fairness, every day, do you happen to know the scoreboard of the previous game of AXIZ versus Sengoku?
To be honest, I do not.
You do not. Let me tell you. Yes, AXIZ only got 2 kills, whereas Sengoku had 20.
That is quite the stomp!
Yes, and now you might be able to understand my kind of amazement at what's currently happening in front of us.
Oh, don't worry, I already understood. I was fully on board with the amazement. But as it turns out, Hoglet has come to bring the thunder today. And he's looking very, very good. I'm just super impressed. I sound a bit like a broken record. This is fantastic. You're in a situation where Apperman can't side lane against Eunyan. He can't enter the side lane. He'd just die. Hoglet could be a little bit caught out. He gets hooked up. The curtain call used as well. We'll be able to get the big Haymaker shield, flashes away, and he's a speedy boy with that phase rush. Look at him go. Set doesn't skip cardio. Gariaru poking it as well. There's an Ash Arrow. Goes through the uprights. That's a good 6.
Still the cannon ult. That's important.
Yeah, he manages to get that slicing maelstrom. They're going to hit straight onto this dragon, but pings are on the Baron.
Okay, so they couldn't get the dragon, so they're going for the Baron. They're racing for it. AXIZ need to follow up on this. Hoglet just recalled. I think they might be able to get this before he gets back.
But the Baron speed is not that fast for Sengoku. Their ADC is horrible at Baron. They're already having to pull it off. They just did a damage test, and they realize we're not passing this DPS check. The boss is going to hit the Enrage.
Well, and now the boss is back here, and potentially if they get caught out... Oh, God, if they get caught out.
Oh, there it is. NT goes gold from that Bard. There's another haymaker. He is swinging from the ropes. Can you hear Hoglet's music as he's charging in? He will finally go down, but it doesn't matter because he's tagged in Unyan, who brings the lightning. He brings the flash as into the back line he goes, trying to chase down onto this Jin. Doesn't quite get him, but forces him out of the fight. On the other side, it was Zoe picking up one as well. And who's going to get the Baron? No one at the moment. They're not going to do it without their jungler. That's fair enough.
That was a phenomenal 3v1. Yes, Hoglet got shut down throughout all of that. It's unfortunate. But the amount that AXIZ were able to get, they got the dragon. That was how long that fight was. We have to include the dragons at the very beginning of that, as well as also everything else that they were able to get. All right, reset. That top turret's gone as well. That's great for them as well. So, as you said, they limit check. Appamen got half health, basically destroyed him out of this. Gariadu with one thing. Bard ultimate, as I said, if they get caught out, oh god, this could be really bad. NT does happen to be able to escape, or he thought he was. Hoglet was able to jump in with that ultimate. Pyrian gets completely locked up, and now it's up to Blank and Appamen to try and secure something. Gariadu is just able to run around, because Zoe is so fast, picks up that kill, partly stealing it from Bard, if we're being fair here.
I think Bard will be okay with it.
No. Bard is a menace. He's a machine, and he wants everything for himself. He is an unknown void, and he demands all sacrifices. And Gadiardo on that Zoe is a bender of will of the universe. That's why she's able to stand up to Bard. It's the only way that could happen, right?
I'll take your word for it.
Cheers, mate.
But I mean, look, in the end, Gary Aru played that super well, but Pyrian's getting exposed. He's 2 and 3, which is not the most horrific scoreline. He obviously has all of his team's kills.
Sure.
But he's not actually being the zoning threat that this Victor needs to be. He's not controlling the fight. He can't hold back the big boys of the Set and the Silas. The big buff boys are getting into the backline.
Yeah, and that AI bot has only dipped 1%, interestingly enough, in Sengoku's favor, though that will be partly all of that scaling, that Victor, that Kennen. If we do happen to get to 4-5 items, yeah, Kennen with 4-5 items just becomes a almost one-shot machine against a team sometimes if he gets the right ult going off, but we first have to get there, right?
But does he? Like, AI bot, he can look at the scaling all he wants, but I don't think he looks at target access very well. Because if Kennen gets to that point, Hoglet can just start ulting Kennen. He comes in, just ult him out. See you, dude.
Sure, but then Blank gets to jump onto the back of all of it, and if Hoglet also jumps into 3 members of Sengoku, he might be just perishing before anything else can happen.
You have Silas, right? Like, Silas scales as well. This is the thing.
I don't disagree with you at all. The problem is, I don't know if I still want to trust AXIZ to perfectly initiate it. We've seen them have this before.
I'm on board. I'm fully on the AXIZ hype train. There is Upperman burning the cannon ult, but Silas steals it and will pop one of his own. Baron was started up, but they think better of it.
Silas does tick over to 18, though. Interesting that Kennen is already able to sort of, kind of, not really beat them.
The extended trade goes Silas's way, I think.
Yeah.
The early burst will always go Kennen's way, but then Silas, even with the grievous wounds, start healing up through it.
He is also 3-1-2, whereas Kennen is 0-3-0.
Yeah.
Like the goal disparity between the two is also going to be a point.
Yeah, of course it is. Like, it's a Rabadon's versus a Morello's, right? Like, it's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, and I mean, that Warmog coming in, Morello's going to definitely be important against that set. Also of note, Gadiadu has now got 12 stacks going. Just casual, that's just a tiny amount of AP. It's not like it's almost a death cap amount of AP coming through. No. At least it hasn't got that additional scaling with it.
Corporal does get away through a magical journey. We do have a very important Drake spawning. This is, of course, Soul, if it can be picked up by Sengoku. We have the continued ultimate cooldown scaling out of AXIZ.
Unyan's caught out.
Unyan could be caught out. He is a slippery boy on that Silas and can get away. The team hasn't collapsed quite yet. There's a W out of the Jin. Can they find a way in? There is a Tempered Fate. The curtain call is used, though. They pull it back. Unyan really wants to go in. Has to play this super carefully. Has the Chaos Storm. Hoglet in the middle of the enemy team. He brings the Thunder once more. Period. So low. And look at the backline. It's Unyan going crazy. He's hunting them down. He's going to charge forward. They're all coming forward. And it's AXIZ winning this fight so hard. Blank is on the run. So many summoner spells for Zoe to pick up if she wants them. There it is. She throws forward. Can't quite catch on, but they're chasing them on down. They finally abandon the hunt, but they can go collect their prize.
Yeah, they might have followed a little bit too far as if it was happening to be solo queue, but they're going to rotate. They're going to just get this Baron, and it's in all fairness, it's theirs for the taking. Blank might be up, but whatever.
They're going to lose Soul. They're going to lose Soul.
Oh, no, they haven't actually taken the dragon. None of them are on this dragon. Are they just going to give Sengoku Soul?
Yeah, Blank's just going to grab Soul. They're going to trade Soul for Baron. It's a Cloud Soul. This isn't awful.
No, it's totally fine, in all fairness. Like, what do they care about an Air Soul?
I think it was necessary, though.
I would agree. I think one of them could have easily stayed and probably...
Oh, hello. They want both. They've got a Tempered Fate to buy time. It gets there in time as well. Can Hoglet get close enough for the steal? Zoe can! She comes in from downtown and paddles that dragon to death.
Movement speed equals get the steal. Unyan, hello for NT. You're just gone, mate. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But
that is NT going down.
Corporal has been playing out of his mind this game on this Bard, on top of also Gadiaru getting that dragon steal. I mean, this is just AXIZ's return game. Patch different axes, break different axes. Day one, you're back in, and Unyan, you're looking amazing back in your original role. Where was this team this whole time? Oh god, the LJL, you can't even call a top team. Okay.
Welcome to my life. But let's have a look at how this all plays. This is going to be a long replay.
Yeah, so Unyan is kind of being taken off. Appamen kept getting... Oh, they kept actually trying to go on to Appamen, disable him. What's brilliant is Hoglet runs around, flash... around, immediately onto Appamen, said, hey mate, no, that was Pyrian rather, hey mate, no, you're not going to actually be in this fight, immediately deletes one of them, locks as many members up as well, and now it's just a chase fight. They're going to see if they can get one. They realize they can get NT, and they're like, okay, well, we can get NT. This is where they should immediately rotate back around. They wanted to try a little longer with Gadiaru picking up that extra flash through the Zoe, as well as the Trouble Bubble. If they land that, it's worth it. They might be able to get another member, especially if someone of Sengoku tries to protect another player and misplays. Honestly, AXIZ, this has been phenomenal, and look at that gold lead. Almost 6k in favor, over 6k now in favor of AXIZ, and they're performing in every avenue. I'm so impressed with them right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, this is a 3 Cloud Drake team when they have fantastic ultimates. Like, this is ideal. If you want to talk about a team, maybe they don't necessarily use the Cloud Soul buff super well.
But it's denying
the movement
it, right?
speed's pretty irrelevant.
Yeah.
I mean, it's denying it, but it's also, you just get 40% ult cooldown reduction on a Silas.
Yeah, no,
that's insane.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, okay, so we're seeing a replay where they're trying to catch out Hoglet from earlier.
I assume they got him. Yeah.
Oh, this is just him out. He was in vision. He didn't realize because he hadn't sweeped. Kind of paid for his price there, but it's not. I don't believe he had any shutdown goal because he had already been shut down earlier. So it's not the worst thing in the world to happen. It sucks, but he died. But there's no other objectives up because they've already taken all those objectives. And yeah, he was about to lose Baron anyway. So, you can forgive him.
Yeah, and I will call back to something I said earlier. It only takes one good hit from a club to bring down David. As it looks like at the moment, Goliath is looking very good. Because, of course, historically, Goliath was not the favorite in that fight. You learn something new every day, guys.
I mean, I feel like I remember this story wrong. I thought it was all about the small guy being able to beat the big guy, not the big guy actually being unfavored in the fight.
When the small guy can hit you from 20 meters away, and the big guy is probably disabled.
Wait.
Exactly...
Are we talking about like Aphelios here and his 200 years?
Look, Aphelios does feature. He actually does feature in that story.
Oh, he does.
Aphelios is the one that gives David his power. It's God.
Right, of course. Yeah, that makes now I understand it. Now it all makes sense. Yeah, of course. I mean, what else is there to really say? This gold lead is absurd. AXIZ have been playing everything phenomenally. I'm just enjoying this game now with you, sir. I'm just more enjoying it.
I'm having a great time. I mean, apparently, we've had a lot of upsets in the VCS. We've had a very strange split. Apparently, it's me. Is it me? Am I just an upset magnet? Because I've come to the LJL, and AXIZ might be about to win.
Well, if we see it happen again with Rascal Jester, it's confirmed. We've confirmed it.
I'll have to start charging for this. I have to ring up teams. Hey, you're the underdog? Get me on the cast and maybe you do a little better.
Suddenly they win and they're like, wow, how does he do it? And you're just like, mate, I just turn up and get a paycheck.
But yeah, no, this is super impressive from AXIZ. There's nothing on the map at the moment they can super easily take. So they are just kind of lulling it out. But that's going to change in 3 seconds. The curtain call is opened up. That's a big ultimate to use for essentially nothing.
And Day One just able to do this on their own because they're just completely zoning them off.
Oh, bang. They zoned them. That's Soul. AXIZ is looking legit.
Okay, so that Baron's also up in 30 seconds. This is partly why AXIZ might have been looking at it. And oh my god, AI bot. AXIZ have never been ahead this late in the game. Never. Okay? So now that they're ahead this far, the AI bot doesn't think they can throw. We've never seen a throw from this high of a percentage from the AI bot. Anything is possible in the LJL, especially when you've got a heavy favourite team going into playoffs versus the team that's 0-8. But I don't know if AXIZ can do this with how they've been playing this game, you know?
And the thing is that their comp isn't hard to execute, even in this late stage of the game. It's very easy to execute, which makes throwing even harder. It's definitely possible. This is a Baron that's just spawned. A bad set of decisions made around a Baron can definitely lose you a game, as it's going down fairly quickly now. They need to do something about it. Does Silas have his TP? He certainly does. There it is. He's burned. He's brought it in, coming into the mid lane. 3,000 help on the Baron. They need to find a way in. Gariaru poking out. There they are, poking in. The Baron will begin to reset. Gonna reset. There they are. NT takes a lot of damage. Upperman is looking for a flank, but can't find one yet. Union as well. You know he wants to sniff out some ults. Take it away. They're trying to back out as Gariaru just moves to the mid lane and they're going to push it in. This is getting a bit strange. And the recalls are in and they just say, okay, guys, you evacuate the river. It's our turn.
It's also a 2-level smite difference. That's huge. We're talking over like 200 in that smite fight. But there's not even going to be a smite fight as curtain call is sadly a bit too late. And I do agree with you earlier every day. That Yutorimo actually using that curtain call earlier might have actually given that Baron fight fully over to AXIZ, whereas if he had it up a lot earlier, maybe they didn't have to recall. Or if they did recall, maybe AXIZ don't feel so confident with it. They didn't even have to respect it. Huge advantage to AXIZ, and now it's just kind of the waiting game to see how fast they can close it at this point now.
Yeah, this is really good, and it's a little bit disappointing from Sengoku. They didn't have the vision control. You saw that instead of just repositioning, they didn't take too much damage in that fight. They didn't die. But they all had to recall because they didn't know where anyone was. They were terrified of getting caught. So they had to hit the recalls instead of just backing off and taking a 5v5.
Oh my god, Blank just half helped by a trouble button combo.
Yep. Ooh, I can smell a bit of... I can smell home in the air. Eucalyptus.
Is that koala bear?
Yeah, Blank's breath. It's just eucalyptus. Seems like he's woken up for the 2 hours koalas wake up a day. Because this is not a threatening volley bear, but there is a teleport flank coming in. There is that curtain call. They're going to try and get something done. Blank is in the front line, but he gets dragged in. That's a big cannonball onto multiple people as the volley bear ult is committed as well. Urian will go down. The Jin gets that kill easy. It's 1-for-1 at the moment, but AXIZ have to find a way out. Blank charging forward. Magical journey to cut the corner. Can they turn around? No! They can't! And Jin, once again, getting those crits. Is this the throw? Hoglet caught out, is a fast boy, but he needs to lead them on a merry chase. Gets to the blast cone. Can he get over the wall? He can. He needs to keep running by all the time for his team to respawn, and this might be the throw.
No, not like this. Not like this. Blank, you're still very fast. Yutorimashi still pushing. The death timers are 30 seconds for Unyan and Gariadu. They've got a lot of time to push really far, and Blank's just still following Hoglet, even though he's full health. You know the second if Hoglet turns around, that we're going to get a turnaround. Oh god, now Hoglet's actually going on as they are pushing this inhib.
The inhib goes down. They're looking to keep going. Ash is up. Going for the end would be incredibly bold. But Yotorimashi has that full shot. There is the stun, but the tempered fate is good, and look who's here! Hoglet's arrived! He jumps over the ropes, and he hits him with a steel chair. And then there's the Ash follow-up. A haymaker comes out to keep Hoglet safe, and they've turned it around onto Torimushu, and it's a throw into a throw. As 4 members of Sengoku have died, they're going to rush it up the mid lane, and this could be the turnaround into the game!
Oh, Sengoku, you stayed too long! Why did you keep pushing? Corporal has the ultimate. He's playing Bard. You don't need to be there. Upperman!
Can you
do it?
He's on the flank. Does he have the cape, or will this be Sengoku's kryptonite? He really needs to look like Superman. The minions are here. They're clearing their way in. The towers are under siege. Upperman, he can't even get away. There's a suplex to make sure he can't get it done. And this will be AXIZ picking up their first win of the split here over Sengoku, and Goliath triumphs.
I'm so... What did I just witness? This is week 5 of the LJL every day, your first cast for us, and we show you a phenomenal performance from our bottom team versus our tied second place team. We're going to have to go on a short break while we gather our thoughts off of this, and we'll be back over to the desk with Initialize. Catch us there shortly.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back, AXIZ. We have missed you. It is AXIZ first win of the summer split. It is against Sengoku Gaming, who are second place in the league at this point. What a massive, massive upset, wouldn't you say, Everyday?
Absolutely. That was a huge upset. Maybe, have I been, like, punked? Is someone going to come out and say it was a fight? That didn't look like a 0-8 game to me.
Oh, man. All right, Lexi, let's dive into a couple people, because
Sure.
we were talking about sort of like volley bears and koala bears. I want to talk about another kind of bear. I want to talk about a drop bear, namely an elbow drop bear in the set.
Yes.
And Hoglet having an absolutely killer game on that set, especially considering this is a jungler who, you know, before in the pre-game we were saying, is he the worst jungler in the league? What a performance, man.
I mean, there was definitely that contention that maybe he was bottom 2 in the league for us on our podcast. Again, go check it out. I'm actually just in sheer shock right now, frankly. He had maybe his best game ever in the LJL, and what a time to pull it out. It was beautifully played, and I think maybe he's been taking notes from Randy Orton. I feel like that's how it has to be coming in. He was doing RKOs from out of nowhere so good that Pyrion and Apperman, who were in contention for some of the best players in their respective roles, he was saying, nah, mate, I'm from out of nowhere. I'm the Cobra. I hear voices in my head, and I'm here to play, and he did it.
Yeah, I mean, that was the biggest face turn I've ever seen. The man comes back from a 3-week break, and now he's a face. Hell yeah, let's go.
That's what we like to see. Speaking of other players that really stepped up, it was Uinyan back into the top lane with this kind of role swap that they finally got. You know, an AD carry player in AD. They've got their regular top laner back in top lane. Things looked a lot more coherent. I do want to touch on that top lane, actually. Everyday, run me through the Sylas, which I know you were pretty impressed with in game.
Yeah, I was. I think he did really well. The Sylas into Cannon matchup is not a great lane, but I mean, it's range versus melee. It's never fun.
Yeah.
But he played it out super, super well, was only a little bit of CS behind by the time he started to outscale, was consistently stealing the right ult. If you noticed, he pretty much only ever stole the Victor and the Cannon ults. He was alternating between those two pretty much the whole time, when it mattered at least.
Yeah.
Because he basically became the control mage at a lot of times. You could see how much attention had to be dedicated to him in fights. It made it so easy for Hoglet to find the hole and rip it open.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair way of putting it. I think we have got to give some serious praise to Inyan. Some good attention again from Hoglet that way that put Appman in a bit of a problem. But the other person who was kind of struggling, or pair that we came in saying this is potentially our best overall 2v2 in the league, namely Pyrion and Blank, had a really rough game. Blank was invisible. He was that koala bear, not a volley bear. We kind of went over that kind of whole joking game. But also Pyrion as well on this Victor, which he is normally completely unimpeachable. Well, we'll come back to that. But Pyrion's Victor, which is normally unimpeachable, that you just can't gank, got dove repeatedly, had his summoners burned. What was going on, Lexi?
I mean, honestly, I think part of this is Gadiaru having an absurdly strong game on this Zoe. It was really weak early on. In all fairness, he needed Corporal to hurt his own lane to keep him alive a little bit through Bard as everyday cast and mentioned even, and actually really brought attention to it. Kept him alive. He was able to get through this early laning phase. Basically, once he hit an item, the disparity between the two, Pyrion wasn't landing so much. Ganks had started coming in from Hoglet, and the trouble bubbles and those sleepy bubbles so many times were coming out of nowhere. They were just always on point, and I want to bring up the bot lane Thresh. We've seen some of the best Threshes, like, plays just out in my life, really, from the LJL.
There's been some very good Threshes, I agree. Right.
This Thresh
yes,
from NT was one of the quietest I've seen in a game, especially from a high caliber support like NT, who is we have rated so highly, sometimes top 3 contention sometimes, and when he didn't turn up, I think multiple parts of this happened, but Gadiaru just performed everything. He didn't miss a shot.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's move on a little bit here then, before we get stuck on that for too long. I want to take us now to the end of the game, because AXIZ pulled out a fantastic gold lead. They were looking in command. They had a huge kill score. They'd even up the early Drake deficit. It was all looking golden. Hell, the stat bot had them at a 91% chance to win that game. And then things got a little bit insane. The Jin crits started hitting every day. Talk me through that ending of the game and the complete nightmare mess throw that it was.
Well, I think we started to see why AXIZ have lost a lot of games. Just at the end there, they did have the wheels fall off the wagon. The cabbages were spilt, unfortunately, just for a moment. But they did play it out about as well as they could. They kept the important members alive. Corporal had the wherewithal to just drop the Bard ult on the towers, deny the push for long enough, and thankfully they got back on track. But had that gone just a little bit worse, Sengoku would have won the game.
Yeah, I'm completely there with you. If it had gone a little worse, it could have been the game flip around with only the 9% chance of victory. Unfortunately for Sengoku Gaming, they do fall there, and AXIZ did manage to clean it out mostly pretty well, apart from that very much squeaky bum cheek moment there. Can we touch on day one for a moment here as well? Stepping in for the first time in a long time. This is a streamer who has come in as a replacement AD carry in the 11th hour for AXIZ. Tell me a little bit about this guy. I know you were relatively impressed, the both of you, the fact that he just didn't punt, and that being really important.
Yeah, I mean, not punting and coming in, not dying, landing really good Ashe ults. You know what? Put him on an easy champion like Ashe and aggressively pick it. Ashe has basically no bad matchups, especially when you ban that Aphelios. You can just AFK farm, your ult's always relevant. Put him with Corporal on Bard, who we've seen before play Bard, doesn't care. Nymera's probably raging somewhere in the world that Corporal played Bard, probably partly just to smite him. I know it's not happening, it's part of the team comp, but it also might be just to spite Nymera for not being on cast.
I mean, like, I don't want to drag the point out for too long, but the thing about day one here is that they picked the Ashe, and I completely agree. It's the 100% the right pick, because Ashe is never your primary carry. She doesn't do well as a primary carry. So the whole world is not on his shoulders. He was just the tertiary carry. The Zoe was dealing damage, the Silas was dealing damage, and Ashe just had to be there to add what damage she could and set up with the volleys, the hawk shots, and the big enchanted crystal arrows. And yeah, he might be just a streamer coming in to save the day, but hey, he put the cape on, right? He swept in.
That's exactly the way to put it. A little bit of a hero when they needed it for AXIZ. One very final thought here quickly, Lexi. AXIZ now at 1-8. They're only 2 games behind that coveted 6th place spot for the playoffs. Can they get in there?
Yeah,
Have they got a chance?
They can. So only one spot's been locked, and that's why V3. Their run, if they can keep playing to this level, yeah, they can actually do it. They could genuinely actually make it through. They have not got some easy matchups ahead of them, especially just in this day alone. But I mean, if they keep this up, why not? I can't say why not now. I'm caster bias is showing, but I mean, I can't help but not want them to make it, especially with day one coming in, and apparently it solves all the problems.
All right, well, the AXIZ dream was dead. Long live the AXIZ dream. We can all hope they can make playoffs yet, but that'll be it from us for now. We'll be right back after this very short break.